Another chance to win, and good luck.
This Sunday, join me, Camilla Tominey, for an exclusive interview with one of the most controversial, influential and unique political figures of our time. Boris Johnson will be in studio discussing his new memoir, Unleashed, the gripping story of how he dealt with plotting politicians, problematic princes and a pandemic. From Boris bikes to Brexit and everything else in between. This Sunday at 9:30 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. Are you comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister?
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
131 projects powering 11 million homes. This is what it means to deliver our clean energy mission.
Eco-loon Red Ed has basically admitted that his net zero fantasy is going to make us poorer, colder and leave us shivering in the dark. Also, a record number of fake child asylum seekers enter the UK, and
60% of them are not British nationals.
This kind of scaremongering rhetoric is dangerous.
It's a fact.
Well, it turns out Nigel was right. A new report shows that migrants are causing a surge in HIV cases in Britain. So
That's why I'll set a legal cap on net migration at 100,000.
should we cap net migration at 100,000 a year, or is that still too high? And Labour's sugar daddy, Lord Wahid Ali, is under investigation over alleged non-registration of interest. More bad news for Starmer. Plus, it's another solo trip for Harry. Is he happier on his own? And the Democrat pick for Vice President had a shocker last night.
So I've become friends with school shooters.
OK. Oh, and remember when Angela Rayner went on the old rave up in Ibiza? Well, lo and behold, that was yet another freebie. I'd be dancing too if I got that one on the tape. On my panel tonight is the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, is landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and journalist Nina Mishkov. Oh, and... She's not laughing now. Can you tell me why Carol Vorderman has just sold her house in Wales? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Is Red Ed Miliband about to leave you shivering in the dark? Next.
Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom. And some breaking news tonight. A doctor charged over the death of Friends star Matthew Perry has pleaded guilty to a charge of illegally distributing the drug ketamine. Dr. Mark Chavez could face up to 10 years in prison when he is sentenced. He's today entered his plea during an appearance in a court in Los Angeles. He's one of 5 people charged in connection with Perry's death, 2 of which are scheduled to go on trial in March. Perry died at the age of 54 last October. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister confirms there will be no return to freedom of movement in any reset of relations between the United Kingdom and the European Union. Sir Keir Starmer has been speaking at a press conference in Brussels, where he is meeting European Union chiefs with a promise to put the Brexit years behind us and form a closer relationship with the bloc. It's his first visit to Brussels as Prime Minister.
Now, of course, there will be issues which are difficult to resolve, and on areas on which we will stand firm. There will be no return to freedom of movement, no return to the customs union, no return to the single market. But we will find constructive ways to work together and deliver for the British people.
Well, it's emerged that Sir Keir Starmer is paying back more than £6,000 worth of gifts and hospitality received since he became Prime Minister. Downing Street's confirmed he's covered the cost of 6 Taylor Swift tickets, 4 to the races and a clothing rental agreement with a high-end designer favoured by his wife, Lady Victoria Starmer. It comes after Sir Keir and other cabinet members who vows to clean up British politics faced weeks of criticism for accepting tens of thousands of pounds worth of freebies from wealthy donors. President Biden says he does not support strikes on Iran's nuclear sites in response to its missile attack against Israel. Iran launched over 180 ballistic missiles at Israel last night, which the United States president previously called ineffective. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed that Iran would face consequences, with some analysts suggesting Israel's response could be more forceful this time, potentially targeting Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. Joe Biden has hinted at additional sanctions against Iran. And finally, the Prince and Princess of Wales has met an aspiring teenage photographer with a rare and aggressive form of cancer after inviting her to take pictures at William's Windsor Castle investiture ceremony. The princess, who has recently completed chemotherapy treatments herself, is a keen amateur photographer too. She was pictured with hugging the 16-year-old Liz from Harrogate. In a personal message on social media, William and Catherine said, "A talented young photographer whose creativity and strength has inspired us both. Thank you for sharing your photos and story with us." Well, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Cameron Walker. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's been a big day for Labour. Lord Ali is under investigation, Starmer's handed back £6 grand worth of freebies, and now it turns out that Angela Rayner's Ibiza DJ booth rave-up was a freebie as well. Oh, and substitute geography teacher David Lammy told Lebanese people to go back home to Israel. Mastermind. And now the eco-fanatic energy minister, Red Ed Miliband, has basically admitted that his lunatic net zero agenda could leave us all shivering in the dark due to blackouts. Here's Mr Miliband praising the closure of our last coal-fired power plant.
Last night was a historic moment for Britain's energy system because after 142 years, the last coal-fired power plant at Ratcliffe-on-Soar shut down. I want to pay tribute to the workers there.
So he thinks that's a good thing. Well, today, the man described by Robert Jenrick as Wallace without the grommet has announced giant metal flywheels could be installed because the removal of coal from our system could cause blackouts. Can you guess who's making these giant metal flywheels? It's a Norwegian company. So not only will we be forced to buy oil from Norway instead of using our own, we'll also probably pay them for our green energy as well. Fantastic. Ed Miliband has promised his big green revolution would lead to more jobs. Thousands of them, to be precise. Here he is saying it as well.
We want to work with companies like Rolls-Royce to have these good jobs at good wages that people in your constituency really want to see.
Well, the North Sea oil ban is set to cost thousands of jobs. The closure of the Port Talbot plant is costing between 2,500 and 4,000 jobs. So he's made loads of people unemployed. And the green jobs that he's told them to get, don't exist. Another thing that Miliband bangs on about is your energy bills. Here he is with his big plan to save you money.
Can you imagine celebrating that energy bills are over £400 higher than they were before the crisis began? Well, that's what Rishi Sunak's been doing. Only Labour offers a plan for real change to cut energy bills for good with GB Energy, our new publicly owned energy company.
And here's Keir Starmer saying that he's got a plan to save you £400. So there we are. Well, let's have a bit of the reality, shall we? Yesterday, energy bills rose by an average of £149 a year because the price cap went up 10%. In fact, we have the highest electricity prices in Europe. You're paying more for electricity than anyone in Europe. But don't worry, when they're not using giant metal flywheels, Ed Miliband's going to be relying on offshore wind. But the 2023 financial results, well, they're in as well. And it turns out that it cost the taxpayer £46 million to generate £13 million of electricity. So just so we're clear, Ed Miliband said he'd make us more energy secure, bring your bills down and create more jobs. The reality is there'll be blackouts that leave us shivering in the dark, your bills have gone up and more people are unemployed. Let's get the thoughts. My panel this evening, we've got the director of the Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, we've got landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and we've got the journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. I will start with you on this, Mark. So, you know, is Ed Miliband going to leave us shivering in the dark?
Quite a high risk of that. I mean, Patrick, I think future generations will look back in horror and bewilderment about this lunatic approach to energy, which is an absolutely pointless act of colossal self-harm. I mean, I'm wondering what he's going to come up with next, that, you know, every household must have a human-sized hamster wheel and every citizen must sort of run around in it every day. Truth is, we are going to be reliant on gas. The other point worth making, we have halved our carbon emissions in about the last 20 years. About halved it. This is colossal progress. The Green lobby should be absolutely applauding this. And stunning, stunning progress. And even if you thought you could come up with some miracle way of getting us to carbon net zero tomorrow, the overall impact on global carbon emissions is trivial. We're about 1% of it. So this is going to be colossally expensive. It's not going to create meaningful jobs. I mean, weird projects can create jobs, but not productive jobs. And the whole thing will unravel. And we've got to be realistic about this. I'm not a climate denier, but I think we have to do this in a measured and sensible way. Yeah. And I think we've actually got to be a lot more realistic about what steps we might take to live with climate change rather than merely preventing it.
I mean, Ed Miliband is obsessed, and I mean, like, obsessed with this idea of us being this world leader when it comes to, you know, carbon emissions and all of this stuff. But as far as I'm concerned, there's a Rizzler paper between him and Greta Thunberg.
Yeah, look, I look at his online videos that he puts out and I wonder if he's all the ticket. You know, I look at them, I cannot take the man seriously. We are building flywheels while China are building power stations. Now, we are less than 1% of the world's global emissions, but we are risking our kids' future, not only jobs, but blackouts. You know, we are risking pensioners' lives. What are we going to do until these flywheels are built? I think 2026 they're saying they might be built. So the next 2 or 3 winters, what happens if there is an energy crisis? We needed the backup of the last coal power station. They've shut that. So what have we got as a backup? We have nothing. Labour incompetent, and I think he's a lunatic.
OK, all right, strong stuff. Nina, what do you make of this? Because he certainly angered the unions. I mean, the idea that there's a Labour minister there praising the closure of a coal-powered plant. I mean, that was the kind of stuff we used to get strikes and riots over, wasn't it?
Well, the point being that, well, first of all, can we establish some ground rules?
Yes.
Do we believe that we should transition to renewables rather than
not especially
fossil or so, you know, so you think we should still be, you know, in the future, say 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40
still use gas, yeah.
Still use, and what about coal?
I'm happy with that being phased out.
Really?
It's a very, very small part.
I find
Until the technology is there that we can rely on, then we do it.
How come you think? Well, at the moment, we're getting 26% of our energy from wind power, and that's offshore wind power. So that, because, the Tories didn't want the NIMBY thing, not in my backyard, nor my rich mate's backyard.
It's the cost of that, though, isn't it? 46 million quid we spent to get 13 million pounds worth of energy.
And they are so quick to put up. You can get a wind farm up and running in 6 months, and they pay for themselves within 2 years.
Well, you don't need a government scheme then. I mean, private business will invest in it then.
Look, that's fine, but so we don't need to be reliant on coal. I mean, I personally think that 2030 is too soon. I think we should try to make the transition longer, but we have to face facts. We have to move with the future. We have to go with the times. And there were days when back in the day we used horses, not cars, and there was when the horses went out and all that went with it, all those people who are working in that industry...
We built cars by that point. That's why horses went out.
That's why I'm saying transition needs to be...
But you're absolutely right, because the point that you've made there is literally the point that pretty much every single expert is making, which is that we could go renewable when we've got the technology, and then the people who are now unemployed might be able to work in those jobs, because at that moment in time, those jobs will exist. Whereas at the moment, they don't... My concern with this, Nina, and I'll put this to you, Mark, we'll have a chat about it now, is that we do have a minister in charge of this who is willing to, in the short term, seemingly make us poorer, colder and unemployed, which is a problem.
Well, it is a problem.
I mean, but he wouldn't be putting flywheels in place to prevent this.
Well, that's an extraordinarily expensive way of doing it. Nina, it's not so much about transitioning away from coal. That's more or less happened. We're not quite there. It's the other types of energy that we should be reliant on that aren't just windmills of some shape.
No, I understand that. What about nuclear? Where's our nuclear?
Why aren't we allowing small modular nuclear reactors to be built? Why the hell have we
why did the last Tory government prevent that? Where are they then? Did they build them? Did they build them? What about Hinkley B?
There's no indication, Nina, there's no indication that Ed Miliband's in favour of building a whole load of nuclear or to go for fracking.
Can we just say nuclear rather? Do you mind if we say nuclear rather than nuclear? Because that is how the word is pronounced.
Small modular reactors.
Okay, it's nuclear. Thank you.
Fracking. We've got to go for fracking and shale gas. This is what's made energy incredibly cheap in the United States of America. High energy prices are disastrous for the economy.
Fracking is disastrous for the environment.
It's not disastrous for the environment.
Well, also, can we talk about... First of all, we need to be as independent as we can. The fact of the matter is we are beholden to the Middle East for our oil, and we were to Russia for our oil. We saw where that happened after the Ukrainian war started.
Why don't we drill for our own?
No, it's nothing to do with oil. The thing is...
It is a bit.
It is.
Look, with the current political situation in the Middle East, oil is rising. It rose by 4% yesterday to $75 a barrel. We cannot be at the mercy of these people.
The North Sea. It's there.
But we cannot be at the mercy of other people.
In the North Sea, it's ours.
If we could have been independent with oil, we would have been independent. There is not enough there. There is not enough. Can I also just say...
Sorry, just to underline the point here, flywheels are not the answer to our problems.
Norwegian flywheels.
Right, so that is not going to save us, and it's not...
It's going to save a blackout,
It's not for the long-term future. At the end of the day, in the early 2000s, I think it was the Lib Dems that killed off our nuclear programme. We wouldn't have had the energy crisis that we did if it wasn't for the Lib Dems acting as they did. That's a fact.
Please.
But we haven't had a sensible energy strategy for 25 years. The government keeps chopping and changing its mind. That makes it nearly impossible to invest in the industry. That's why the UK is facing such high bills. It's a disaster.
Do you think Ed Miliband's a fanatic?
He is on this point, yeah. This is way too far too fast.
And you said he's alongside Greta Thunberg, and there's a picture of them two sat together.
So what? Is that a crime?
Do you think
it's a crazy?
I think he's a man with a mission. That's what I think.
No doubt about that.
And there's nothing wrong with Greta Thunberg. I don't see what your problem is. Oh, come on.
Why does she keep getting arrested, Nina?
Because
she keeps breaking the law.
Oh, please. Breaking the law by protesting.
Right.
By protesting.
So
she's a woman. She's a young woman with ideals. She's allowed to protest. What have you got against women?
She's a young...
What have you got against women?
Steady on. Can't criticise a woman without...
You know what?
Can't criticise any woman
normally
without
I would get the ump of this, but that is so laughable.
No, it's not laughable.
Nina.
No.
She is a fanatic, and most people
She
laugh.
is a woman with an...
Most people laugh.
Not most people.
You've got to get the fanaticism out of it. You've got to have a sensible argument about this.
And our energy companies put our prices up. With nothing to do with market sources.
I get it, but I just think it's worth noting, as pensioners potentially stare down the barrel of shivering to death this winter, that I bet the heating is on in the Treasury all night. Yeah. I bet the heating is on in Downing Street all night. I bet it's on for all of these places all night. I would hazard a guess, and you've got Red Ed, who's out there saying, you know, we need to row back on all this. You know, you get your big green energy, and meanwhile you got pensioners there.
I'm a pensioner whose bill went up 25% yesterday.
Okay.
So I wrote to them.
You're well off. You're well off.
I'm not well off, but I can afford it. I wrote to them and said, I'm not in financial difficulty, but you've done a survey, and why haven't you? You know, why have you put it up? Show me why you've put it up. Because normally I'm in credit, and I can ring them up and say, send it back.
Get energy prices
and you know why? They wrote back first thing this morning and said, OK, we'll leave it as it is. End of.
Right, fine, OK, good.
So they were just trying to get... And if I hadn't done that, they would have taken...
How many Labour donors are going to, you know, profit from these green policies?
We
That's
don't
what I
know.
would like
We'll
to know.
have to wait and see. We would have to wait and see. Right, OK, lively start. Thank you very much. There's loads more to go out tonight, but before I get stuck into that, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. Your chance to win the equivalent of having an extra £3,000 in your bank account each month for the next year, a whopping 36 grand in tax-free cash. Here's all the details that you need to make that money yours.
This is your good luck.
OK, so still to come in the next hour.
Now, you can shake your head. This is...
I'm absolutely shaking my head because you said...
This is... Hang on.
You repeated misinformation.
Are you aware?
So Nigel Farage was today embroiled in an almighty war of words over his comments about the Southport riots. Look, has the mainstream media just proved once again that it's out of touch with millions of Brits? Reform UK MP Lee Anderson joins me live very soon. But up next, Tory leadership candidate Tom Tugendhat has come up with a radical plan to reduce migration, a legally binding cap of 100,000 migrants per year. But that's in stark contrast to his leadership rival Robert Jenrick, who wants migration levels down to the tens of thousands. Who is right? Should we cap immigration at 100,000? Is that still too high? Going head-to-head on that, Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe and, well, pro-EU left-wing individual Pablo Anastasia.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
National Trust Director General has said something rather curious. She's admitted that 70% of the charity's staff are Union Jack-hating progressive activists. Yes, this was speaking at a Labour Party fringe event. The boss of the charity, Hilary McGrady, acknowledged that there was a gap between her staff's views and the views held by the wider public. So was she being honest? Joining me now to discuss this is historian and broadcaster Rafe Hadel-Mancu, who I believe is with me. Rafe, thank you very much indeed. Can this be true?
The founders of the National Trust and later figures involved in it, like my hero James Lees Milne, were really motivated by love of nation. But I think that love of nation in the Trust has become actively, you know, national self-loathing. And that's really the state of modern Britain. And with the Trust, I mean, what we've done is we've actually entrusted our national heritage to those people who actually actively despise our national heritage. And it's, you know, it's utter madness.
Have these people wanted to take over charities like the National Trust for their political ends, or is it just something that happens? Is it just the type of people who work in charities?
This has been part of the long march through the institutions, that people need to understand that Britain is now a post-revolutionary society. So the buildings that house our institutions look the same, but the people who now run them bear no comparison to the generations who lovingly built and ran them. They are cuckoos in the nest, and we need to understand that. And of course, once you realize that, of course, that explains completely why, you know, the National Trust and others have crudely tried to denigrate our national heroes and link them and their houses to colonialism and slavery, as they ludicrously tried to do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Night. We are only on GB News. Now, how would you feel about a cap, a legally binding cap of 100,000 people a year when it comes to net migration? It's time for the head-to-head. So, the final four Tory leadership candidates all took to the stage today in their big push to convince everyone that they should be the next party's leader before they're whittled down to two next week. Now, Tom Tugendhat, he used the opportunity to outline his plan to reduce net migration.
We need an effective deterrent. But we must solve as well as stop. And that's why I'll set a legal cap on net migration at 100,000. Not a target, not an ambition, a cap.
Right, so that puts clear blue water between him and his leadership rival, Robert Jenrick, who told GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope, that he wants a cap much lower than 100,000.
Bring back this net 100,000 a year migrant arrivals?
Yes, but go significantly further. What I'm saying is Parliament should set that number. I think it should be in the tens of thousands or lower.
Right, OK, so tonight I am asking, should we introduce a legal migration cap of 100,000, or is that still too high? Going head-to-head on this now are the Reform UK MP, Rupert Lowe, and the political advisor, Pablo Ohana. Chaps, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Rupert, is 100,000 net too high?
Well, Patrick, every target that we've been told is going to be met by all the various parties since Tony Blair opened the floodgates in '97, they've never adhered to them. The point is not the target. There should be now very limited, targeted immigration. They don't mention the word targeted. We want people who are going to contribute to our economy. We've got far too many low-skill people from parts of the world, all over the world. We don't know what their objectives are. They're costing the British taxpayer money, and they're not contributing to our economy sufficiently to cover their own costs. And at the end of the day, we've got 9 million people of working age who aren't working. So you can't look at one issue without the other. But my view is it's got to be targeted immigration. It's got to be high-skilled immigration. And we need to learn from Singapore, who basically paid their judiciary properly, paid their politicians properly, and actually targeted their immigration policy. They now enjoy GDP per capita twice as high as the UK. Australia is the other example that nobody takes enough notice of. They have managed the situation very well. I have very little faith in the current political leadership being able to manage immigration and civil services.
I'll cut you off there and I'll come back to you. Pablo, I'm just going to pick up on what Rupert said there. So a record number of 1.6 million legal migrants in Britain are currently not working, and they're costing the taxpayer £8 billion a year. There is a case, isn't there, to have a fixed level of net migration so that we can all, You know, feel more of the economic positive impact ourselves instead of opening the floodgates?
Well, I mean, we've been here before on arbitrary targets. David Cameron's, famously set that target of 100,000. Theresa May tried, Boris Johnson tried, Liz Truss, less said about her the better, but Rishi Sunak tried. It's never worked because it doesn't reflect the reality of the situation. Immigration is vital to our country. They contribute more in taxes than they take in benefits. No one ever talks about that. Last year, that was more than 122 billion pounds.
Why are we all poorer then?
Well, that's not true. That's not true.
GDP per capita is down. We've got population increasing faster than we've ever had before, and GDP per capita is going down. So why is that?
That is not down to immigration. The problem is that we have this conversation all the time about what immigration does to our country, and we never talk about the benefits of it. Because the truth is that on the right, it is easier to not solve this issue. We don't have a reasonable, rational debate about this, because then they wouldn't have anything to campaign on. It's easier to dehumanize the issue and demonize other people rather than having a sensible conversation about how immigration
benefits. There's much dehumanization about a spreadsheet, is there, Pablo? That's what it looks like on a spreadsheet.
Setting arbitrary targets like 100,000 when these people contribute more in taxes than they take in benefits doesn't make sense. We need our NHS, which we all love. It would collapse without immigration. We need that. They bring innovation, they bring cultural diversity, they bring a skilled workforce that strengthens our global competitiveness.
That's what I thought. When I go into the NHS because I've got crippling abdominal pain, I'm really there fundamentally for the cultural enrichment. But Rupert, I'll throw it over to you. Is there some truth to what Pablo said there? And if we are going to have this right, I think it's important to have a bit of context about where your head is at, Rupert, when it comes to migration. Because correct me if I'm wrong, but I actually think you want net zero migration, don't you?
I want minuscule targeted immigration, only immigration that's going to benefit the existing UK economy. So where we have a skill shortage, target that. But I mean, Pablo's just on a different planet. He's not actually in a proper what I call real industry. The guy is out of touch with reality. And the fact of the matter is, you look at our economy. As you say, Patrick, nothing works. Nothing works because immigration has flooded the entire country. Every single service that we've got is now broken. The civil service is not functioning properly. None of their offices are working because there are too many people who come into the country legally and illegally. And as you quite rightly say, our GDP per capita is falling all the time. So the new arrivals are actually costing the country money.
All right. Pablo, I'm going to ask you the same question, but in reverse, really. So as far as your mindset is at when it comes to migration, is it that you don't really want to put a cap on it because actually you just like loads more?
No, I don't think we need an open door on immigration. I think that it does need to be targeted, and we need to make sure that the people coming in are contributing. I think the problem is that we, as I say, this debate happens a lot, but it becomes very unpleasant, it becomes very personal, and it is matched only really by an extraordinary absence of accurate information. We have to clarify, firstly, what are we talking about? Immigration, migration, refugees, all these different types of terminology that just get kind of conflated together. Refugees, for example, are people who flee desperate war and persecution. 85% of
economic migrants
settling countries directly next to where they are fleeing. Do we need effective measures to control immigration? Yes. The answer is competent, effective government, which we haven't had for decades. We have suffered a decade of weak, immature, populist governing with people who just slap targets on things because they want to attract headlines and votes. If we assess people when they come into the country and we look at their situation, where they are coming from, we can create a fair system that is competent and compassionate, that doesn't waste resources on
what about being compassionate to your own people, then? That's part of it. Is it compassionate to create a situation where migration is surging far quicker than economic growth? I'm not entirely sure that's compassionate to the people who pay into the system day in, day out and have lived here all their lives, or the grandparents have lived here all their lives. I mean, I don't. It's compassionate to who, isn't it? I suppose it's where your priorities are. Really, I am currently getting shouted at there, I'm afraid, chaps. So I'm going to have to leave this. I do apologise, but thank you very much. It's a fantastic head-to-head. We love to see it, and I would also like to emphasise that Pablo does have a proper job, Rupert. Let's not be mean. OK, so there we are. As Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe and political advisor Pablo Ahmed. Thank you very much, guys. All right. So, look, who do you agree with on all of that? You know, I want to know. Get in the inbox now as well. You can go to GBViews at gbnews.uk. Let us know. There was a Twitter poll as well online. I'll give you the results of that in a bit. But coming up, fresh off the back of his return to the UK, Prince Harry has jetted into South Africa for his charity. So on a solo trip, though, and that's the interesting thing, because it's actually the latest in quite a long line of solo trips for Prince Harry. It'll mark a 2.5-week stint since he was last seen in public with Meghan, amid reports that he's back to his usual self. Is the Duke of Sussex happier flying solo? Former royal correspondent of The Sun, Charlie Ray, he's got the inside scoop. He joins me very, very soon. But first,
I think reform have filled a gap that the Conservatives were failing to actually fill themselves.
There we go. Yes, a potential pact with Reform UK was the talk of the town at Tory party conference this week, but would Nigel Farage even contemplate getting into bed with a party that were resolutely rejected by voters? I'm also going to be asking my next guest, Lee Anderson, about Farage's stand-up row with Susanna Reid on Good Morning Britain this morning. Stay tuned.
Hello, good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's going to be a cold night ahead with some frost and fog in places, but generally high pressure is building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather to come. Still low pressure dominating across the south, so cloudier here with some showers, but high pressure in the north is building across the country, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather. Now, as we head into this evening, still some cloud across the south, but it is generally breaking up as we head into the overnight period, so leaving plenty of clear spells. Largely dry, though, still the chance of a few showers just poking into southeastern coasts. But otherwise, a dry night for many, plenty of clear spells, so it will be feeling cold with some fog in places too, particularly in northern areas. Might just be a little bit slow to clear by the time we reach tomorrow morning as well. So as I say, particularly across Scotland, it will be feeling cold, likely to see some grass frost, may even see a little bit of frost on your cars during the early hours of the morning, and there will be fog in places too, so do take care when travelling. This generally lifting and breaking through the course of the morning, but as I say, there may be some stubborn fog, which is slow to clear. Largely dry across the south, still those showers just feeding in to the southeast coast. But as I say, high pressure building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather across the country. There is still the chance of the odd shower across the southeast, but you'll probably be unlucky if you do catch any. Largely dry, plenty of sunny spells and some lighter winds as well. So even though temperatures are generally round about average with highs of around 16, 17 in the southeast, it'll probably feel more pleasant in those lighter winds. As we head into Friday, still plenty of fine and settled weather around, but low pressure is trying to edge its way into the west, so cloudier here with some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. And there will still be plenty of fine, dry weather across the country as we head into the weekend, but we are expecting some more unsettled spells as well. So as always, stay tuned for all the details. Bye for now.
This Sunday, join me, Camilla Tominey, for an exclusive interview with one of the most controversial, influential and unique political figures of our time. Boris Johnson will be in studio discussing his new memoir, Unleashed, the gripping story of how he dealt with plotting politicians, problematic princes and a pandemic. From Boris bikes to Brexit and everything else in between. This Sunday at 9:30 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News.
Britain's news channel. This Sunday, join me, Camilla Tominey, for an exclusive interview with one of the most controversial, influential and unique political figures of our time. Boris Johnson will be in studio discussing his new memoir, Unleashed, the gripping story of how he dealt with plotting politicians, problematic princes and a pandemic. From Boris bikes to Brexit and everything else in between. This Sunday at 9:30 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, welcome back. Loads to come. So Prince Harry, he seems happier on his own. Why is that? I'll be discussing that. And also, Nigel Farage was proven to be correct. Unfortunately, the latest stats show that there is a HIV surge in Britain, fuelled by immigration. But first, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage has been accused of inflaming people, amplifying false information, following the Southport stabbings, drawing an almighty clash with ITV presenter Susanna Reid. Let's have a look, shall we?
Susanna, you can shake your head. This is...
I'm absolutely shaking my head because you said...
This is... Hang on.
You repeated misinformation.
Are you aware?
Are you aware? Was under surveillance.
Are either of you aware?
You asked whether the
terrorism
truth is being withheld from us.
Well, of course it's being withheld. Look what happened in Nottingham. A triple murderer will kill.
You're conflating two entirely separate cases.
The public deserves...
That's not how the rule of law works.
Do you know what?
Nigel Farage, I just think that with power comes responsibility.
Quite right.
And you cannot just, on camera, raise spurious questions which you know will inflame people.
Tell us the truth.
And then just...
How inflammatory is that?
Right, I'm joined now by Reform UK MP Lee Anderson. Lee, do you think that the establishment media understand the concerns of millions of Brits?
I think what they don't understand, Patrick, is when people tune into a programme like that in the morning, they actually want to listen to what Nigel Farage has to say, not what these tin pot presenters have to say. This is why they tune in. And all she did, I saw the clips earlier today on social media, all she did, all through the interview, was butt in and stop Nigel from actually speaking. This is not good interviewing, Patrick. This is just, this is just somebody who's trying to get their own point across, when really the purpose of an interview like this is to let Nigel have his say, and they didn't let him do that.
It's all very corporate, isn't it? It's all very much like, oh, this is the defined pastime. I mean, you've got Ed Balls there clutching pearls. You've got Susanna Reid there clutching pearls, haven't you? Do you actually think that either of those two people are properly in touch with the common man and woman on the street?
Well, no, Ed Balls. I mean, Ed Balls was a joke. He lost his seat. I mean, the electorate rejected him. I can't look at him, Patrick, without cracking up laughing, to be honest. And Susanna... I mean, all she did, like I say, Patrick, was put in every 2 seconds she put it in. Didn't let Nigel have his say. This is very, very poor. These pair wouldn't get a job on GB News, by the way.
OK, well, we're most to be seen, and we probably couldn't afford Susanna Reid, to be fair. But yes, I mean... you know, when you see Nigel being kind of barracked like that, and he gets it quite a lot, I do wonder whether or not it just highlights the disconnect between a lot of people in the chattering media classes, many of whom would, I am convinced, happily live in gated communities if they could, and actually people who are out there seeing the day-to-day. You know, when was the last time Susanna Reid visited a migrant hotel? When was the last time Ed Balls bothered to visit one of those places?
You're right, Patrick. They don't live in the real world. These people don't. They absolutely don't. They never visit a place like Ashfield and talk to real people on the street or in the pubs. They, like you say, they probably lived in their little gated communities, live in their own fluffy little world, and never mix with real people. You know, Nigel, I mean, people have a pop at Nigel all the time, but he's out there, Patrick. He's out around the country talking to real people in the pubs, in the clubs, in the shopping centres. He's been to Ashfield. He's spoken to real people. He's the one that's got his finger on the pulse of the nation.
Well, he puts himself at risk as well. You know, this is the thing. You know, there's been at least a couple of occasions during the general election where he was put at significant risk, and no doubt, you know, again, subsequently, I know he's got security, etc. You know, he puts himself out there in a way that some of the others never would. And there is an argument to be made, and by the way, I honestly don't think that Susanna Reid or Ed Balls were doing that then, but there have been times where I've seen him on the media when I think people have been whipping up stuff about him that actually make him a target, and that is quite irresponsible. But, Lee, I'll whiz us on to another topic now, because there's been a lot of chatter about a potential Conservative Reform Party deal. This was at the Tory party conference in Birmingham this week. I can see you're already shaking your head about that. But, you know, the Tory leadership hopefuls, though, James Cleverly, well, he's dead against it. I've got a clip.
And never forget, Reform didn't deliver Brexit, we did. Reform didn't cut immigration, I did. And mark my words, we will beat Reform by being the best version of ourselves, not a pale version of anyone else. So no mergers, no deals.
OK, so it seems as though you actually agree with each other. Neither of you want a deal.
Well, I mean, he's just said there that he's cut immigration. I don't know what planet he's been living on, Patrick, for the last 2 or 3 years. It's gone through the roof. But look here, he said that Reform today was a pale imitation of the Conservative Party. Why would we want to imitate the Conservative Party? They've just lost, been absolutely trashed at the last general election. They've failed on every single promise in their manifesto of 2019. Immigration figures have gone through the roof, crimes through the roof. We've got criminals coming out on the streets, which is as a result of not building enough prisons and creating enough prison spaces. Honestly, mate, it's an absolute joke. Why would we want to imitate the Conservative Party?
Well,
we're quite happy on our own, Patrick.
Well, OK, fine. You may well be happy on your own and good for you. But the number of Tory members wanting a merger with Reform, so these Tory members, the number of them who want a merger is just over 50%, I think. Yep, that's right, that's what I'm looking at. Just over 50%, OK? And the Tories did get more votes and more seats than you. So, in theory, you could just join a winning team, couldn't you?
Well, they could join the winning team, Patrick. They could join us. And this is the thing, you know, you make a valid point about the majority of the membership, you know, would like to see a merger. I tell you what, if Nigel Farage went into the final two next week in the Tory party leadership election, he would win by a country mile. So when James Cleverly is spouting this nonsense, actually all he's doing is winding up his own members.
OK, all right, Lee. Well, look, thank you very, very much. As ever, good to see you. You take care. There's Lee Anderson there, who is the Reform UK MP for Ashfield. Lots to go out there, but there's a heck of a lot more coming your way, because at 10 p.m, we're going to have a little chat about this.
60% of them are not British nationals.
This kind of scaremongering rhetoric is dangerous.
It's a fact.
Well, look, it turns out that Nigel was right. A new report has revealed that migrants are causing a surge in HIV cases in Britain. Oh, and Labour have finally admitted that they can't close migrant hotels and they can't get rid of the backlog. So is Labour's promise to tackle Britain's migration crisis unravelling? I will give you my take at 10. But first, Prince Harry's jetted into South Africa on his second consecutive solo tour without his wife, Meghan Markle. So is he happier on his own? And is the return of the Harry we knew and loved imminent? Former royal correspondent of The Sun, Charlie Ray, joins me live in just a few seconds. Stay tuned.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Right, we're having beans this morning.
Beans for breakfast. There's no better breakfast, is there?
I like beans on toast for breakfast.
So do I. I would actually call myself a baked beans connoisseur.
Would you? Well, we can put you to the test. Tell us what the story is.
The story is, you might think beans, you might think Heinz. Heinz means beans.
Beans means Heinz.
Beans means Heinz. Heinz means beans. Who knows? So, of all of the supermarket baked beans, it is actually the Aldi supermarket version, this version over here, which came out on top. The Bramwell's baked beans, 76% on the taste test.
And they're much cheaper as well.
Much cheaper. Households can save, if you're buying 2 cans a week, £100 a year buying the Aldi version of these baked beans. So we thought we're going to do a blind taste test this morning.
Yes,
to see.
so we've got the Aldi beans, we've got M&S beans, and we've got beans Heinz. So I think number 2 is the best one.
Yeah, I agree.
Right,
2 came first best to me.
So the Heinz is number 3.
Interesting.
Which was the worst one?
Which is the worst one, which is the ones, actually, I'll buy it home.
Do you know what? That's just proven it. M&S was number one. And Aldi was number
number
two,
two.
which was our favourite as well.
I said M&S.
Yeah, and we both said Aldi.
We did say Aldi. I have to be honest, I was not expecting that.
I told you. This is the hill I will die on. These are the beans that I get at home and I love them.
At university, you get the tin that's half that size, and it was 21p for the store ones and 23p for Heinz baked beans. And as I say, the key was in the thickness of the sauce and how hard the beans were. They
actually are really nice.
Stunning.
I am really surprised, and we buy more than 2 cans a week, so it saved me a couple of £100.
We get through 2 cans.
So you like the Aldi ones? I like the Aldi ones. I'm shocked.
They're a lot
There you go.
cheaper. Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. So, Prince Harry has embarked on yet another solo trip without his wife Meghan. Harry landed in South Africa for his charity, Centre Ballet, which was founded in 2006 to honour his mother, Princess Diana, and help disadvantaged children. It marks his second successive trip abroad without his wife Meghan, and it follows his brief visit to the UK for the Well Child Awards in London earlier this week. Now, royal insiders are quick to note that the real Prince Harry that the nation knew and loved, he appears to be back, i.e. he's not whinging non-stop. Joining me now is former royal correspondent of The Sun, Charlie Ray. Charlie, is it fair to say that Harry is just happier without Meghan?
Well, yeah, he's certainly happier without Meghan on these sort of visits. I mean, I'm from the school that believes that Meghan's never, ever going to come back to the UK, and thank God she's never coming back. But it's nice to see Harry again back doing what we like Harry to be doing. Now, I've been a critic, as you well know, on your programme and other programmes as well, of Harry, for what he's been doing since he left the royal family. But this is great to see him, you know, coming across here, doing Well Child, which he's been linked with for 16, 17 years. And he's in Lesotho with Centre Ballet, that, as you quite rightly said, the charity started to honour his mother. He's not going straight back to the California. He's going to Johannesburg for more charity works and in seeing businessmen to entice more money to help these charities. So he looks great. He looks smiley. I mean, every time he's been with Meghan on his recent visits abroad, he's looked subtly, you know, there's no smile, you know. Meghan's the one who's
well, he's playing second fiddle, isn't he? That's the thing. When he's playing second fiddle, he always looks awkward. He always looks like, OK, I better make sure that I don't stand in front of her by mistake or walk through a door first by mistake, which I would argue doesn't necessarily always look that healthy. But when he's on his own, you know, he's not moaning all the time. No, he's not. And it's great to see that, you see, I think as well that their togetherness of what they have done is people's fed up with it. They're fed up with the moaning. They're fed up with the constant harping on about the cruel royal family that drove them away and everything else. And it's just great to see that Harry, he needs a venture to deflect from the failures. And these are it. This is what he used to do when he was here. And it's great to see him back doing this again. It was interesting as well when he was at Well Child. There was a young lady called Scarlett Cripps who handed him a crystal heart, one for him, one for Archie, and one for Lilibet, and a purple crystal heart for Meghan, which just goes to show that she'll have at least have one heart. Well, there you go. But, you know, all this moaning and stuff, people just don't buy it. I mean, you know, according to reports, he inherited £8.5 million British pounds because the Queen Mother left it to him in trust when he turned 40. I mean, you know, so, oh, sorry, woe is me, my daddy cut me off. All right, well, hang on for another couple of years, mate, and you get £8 million.
Well, let's also not forget that he had a few £1 million in the bank already from his, some of it from his late mother beforehand. So he's not short of a bob or two. He's almost as rich as you are, Patrick. He's got, plenty of money in the bank. He doesn't need Netflix. He doesn't need Spotify. If he just carries on doing these sort of things, people will take to him again and say Harry's just a great guy. And it's interesting again, isn't it, Patrick? Didn't see his father. His father's up in Scotland. His brother's still got no time for him. Won't put him in the diary.
Well, we've got so he could go to, was it Colombia? It was Colombia, wasn't it? Yeah.
Colombia, yeah.
Yeah, and then so he came to Wellchild. So he's flown from the States to Wellchild. So that's a trek, isn't it? And then he's gone to South Africa. So he can go to South Africa. So it's not as if he couldn't have just nipped into Balmoral, is it?
Well, no, because these things will have been planned in advance. But there was nothing made easy for him to see his father. I mean, his father's up there on holiday, and he's still battling away with his cancer and everything else. So, he's got an excuse not to come down to London. But, I mean, Harry could easily have gone up there if he'd so wanted to fit it in, as long as his father was happy to see him. These are not going to happen. The rift between Harry and his brother and his father is going to be there long standing. This is not going to be solved in a short time.
What is interesting, though, I'm just reading this from a day ago, is that Meghan Markle has been caught off guard because Prince William and Kate Middleton's charity plans a US expansion. So that was charity wars, isn't it? Really, could be coming to the States.
I mean, I'm not sure what she's doing. She's got something going with Riviera Orchard. Blow Me Down, whatever it's called. I mean, I don't even know what it is supposed to be.
I think it's actually just called jam. I think she makes jam now.
Is it jam? Well, I'll be interesting. But she's been engaged over the last week at least of this war with various new US publications. Saying that she raising up the bullying aspects of what she was like. She's had staffers on her own organisation, Archwell, go on record and say she's the greatest thing since sliced bread and everything else. I don't think many people believe that. Remember, there's still the allegations going on over here of her bullying when she was here. But we don't know what the result of that inquiry was. But, there's never smoke without fire, Patrick.
We'll have to wait and see, won't we? And look, if they were a brand and that was part of their relationship, and now that brand has decided to consciously uncouple for commercial reasons, it does make you wonder, doesn't it? Charlie, thank you very much, as ever. Charles Ray there, former royal correspondent at The Sun. Now, coming up, the BBC has had yet another shocker.
The Hezbollah in Iran have played it fairly rationally, always try to be very cautious in how they respond.
I'll explain exactly what's going on there very shortly. With former BBC executive and presenter Roger Bolton, he doesn't seem to think there's anything wrong with that, but I'll fill you in. Next, though, HIV cases are at a 15-year high, and apparently the link there is mass migration. We've got more fake asylum seekers as well, fake child asylum seekers, and the backlog is bigger than ever. So is Britain's migration crisis only about to get worse under Labour? Oh, and Lord Ali's under investigation.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's going to be a cold night ahead with some frost and fog in places, but generally high pressure is building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather to come. Still low pressure dominating across the south, so cloudier here with some showers, but high pressure in the north is building across the country, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather. Now, as we head into this evening, still some cloud across the south, but it is generally breaking up as we head into the overnight period, so leaving plenty of clear spells. Largely dry, though, still the chance of a few showers just poking into southeastern coasts. But otherwise, a dry night for many, plenty of clear spells, so it will be feeling cold with some fog in places too, particularly in northern areas. Might just be a little bit slow to clear by the time we reach tomorrow morning as well. So as I say, particularly across Scotland, it will be feeling cold, likely to see some grass frost, may even see a little bit of frost on your cars during the early hours of the morning, and there will be fog in places too, so do take care when travelling. This generally lifting and breaking through the course of the morning, but as I say, there may be some stubborn fog which is slow to clear. Largely dry across the south, still those showers just feeding into the southeast coast. But as I say, high pressure building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather across the country. There is still the chance of the odd shower across the southeast, but you'll probably be unlucky if you do catch any. Largely dry, plenty of sunny spells and some lighter winds as well. So even though temperatures are generally round about average with highs of around 16, 17 in the southeast, it'll probably feel more pleasant in those lighter winds. As we head into Friday, still plenty of fine and settled weather around, but low pressure is trying to edge its way into the west. So cloudier here with some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. And there will still be plenty of fine, dry weather across the country as we head into the weekend, but we are expecting some more unsettled spells as well. So as always, stay tuned for all the details. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good luck.
This Sunday, join me, Camilla Tominey, for an exclusive interview with one of the most controversial, influential and unique political figures of our time. Boris Johnson will be in studio discussing his new memoir, Unleashed, the gripping story of how he dealt with plotting politicians, problematic princes and a pandemic. From Boris bikes to Brexit and everything else in between. This Sunday at 9:30 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. A record number of fake child asylum seekers have entered the UK and
60% of them are not British nationals.
This kind of scaremongering rhetoric is dangerous.
It's a fact.
Nigel was right. A new report shows that migrants are causing a surge in HIV cases in Britain and
fixing the chaos in the asylum system, ending asylum hotels, clearing the backlog and setting up a new returns unit.
oh, whoopsie, because Labour now admit that they can't close migrant hotels and they can't reduce the backlog that much. Total failure. Also, Labour's sugar daddy, Lord Wahid Ali, is under investigation over alleged non-registration of interest. There's a little bit more coming out tonight about all of this as well. More bad news for Starmer, and the Democrat pick for Vice President had a shocker last night.
I've become friends with school shooters.
Why? Oh, and remember when Angela Rayner went raving in Ibiza? I called it at the time, and I was right. It was yet another freebie, wasn't it? On my panel tonight is the director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and Nina Mishkov as well, the journalist and broadcaster. Oh, and... Well, you're not laughing now, are you? I will tell you why Carol Vorderman has just sold her house in Wales. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Britain's broken borders causes a surge in HIV cases. Next.
Good evening. The top stories from the GB newsroom.
The Prime Minister's confirmed there will be no return to freedom of movement in any reset of relations between the UK and the European Union. Sir Keir Starmer has been speaking at a press conference in Brussels where he is meeting European Union chiefs with a promise to put the Brexit years behind us and form a closer relationship with the bloc.
Now, of course, there will be issues which are difficult to resolve and on areas on which we will stand firm. There will be no return to freedom of movement, no return to the customs union, no return to the single market. But we will find constructive ways to work together and deliver for the British people.
Well, today it's emerged Sir Keir's paying back more than £6,000 worth of gifts and hospitality received since he became Prime Minister. Downing Street's confirmed he's covered the cost of 6 Taylor Swift tickets, 4 to the races and a clothing rental agreement with a high-end designer favoured by his wife, Lady Starmer. It comes after Sir Keir and other cabinet members who vowed to clean up British politics faced weeks of criticism for accepting tens of thousands of pounds worth of freebies from wealthy donors. President Biden says he does not support strikes on Iran's nuclear sites in response to its missile attack against Israel. Iran launched over 180 ballistic missiles at Israel last night, which the United States president previously called ineffective. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed that Iran would face consequences, with some analysts suggesting Israel's response could be more forceful this time, potentially targeting Iran's nuclear or oil facilities. Joe Biden has hinted at additional sanctions against Iran. A doctor charged over the death of Friends star Matthew Perry has pleaded guilty to a charge of illegally distributing the drug ketamine. Dr. Mark Chavez could face up to 10 years in prison when he is sentenced. He's today entered his plea during an appearance in a court in Los Angeles. He's one of 5 people charged in connection with Perry's death, 2 of which are scheduled to go on trial in March. Perry died at the age of 54 last October. And finally, the King's been showing off his dance moves tonight ahead of his trip to Samoa for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. Well, it was a guest at His Majesty's Commonwealth reception who successfully persuaded him to join in a Samoan dance lesson. The King and Queen were hosting around 300 guests at St James's Palace tonight, including singer Grace Jones, dancer Motsi Mabuse, and rugby player Theo McFarland. And I suspect to be reporting on a lot more of His Majesty's moves in a few weeks. That's it for now. Time to return to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Britain's border madness just took another sinister twist. New HIV diagnoses have hit a 15-year high after a surge in the number of cases among migrants coming to England. That is according to the UK Health Security Agency. Just look at the detail of this. 53% of new cases were from people who were diagnosed abroad, the majority from Africa. In total, half of these cases were from people born in Eastern Africa, while a further 22% were from other parts of Africa. About 8% of people were born in each of Asia and Latin America and the Caribbean. Now, Nigel Farage did warn about this years ago and was vilified for it.
There are 7,000 diagnoses in this country every year for people who are HIV positive, but 60% of them are not British nationals. You can come into Britain from anywhere in the world and get diagnosed with HIV and get the retroviral drugs that cost up to £25,000 per year per patient.
This kind of scaremongering rhetoric is dangerous.
It's a fact.
It's dangerous, it divides communities and it creates stigma to people who are ill, and I think you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Well, yeah, according to the UK Health Security Agency, it is a fact. I mean, here's another fact, all right? A record 1,317 asylum seekers have been caught out pretending to be children in the first half of this year. It is the highest number for the first 6 months of any year on record, and more than the combined totals of all of 2017, 2018 and 2019. So when people say, no, they're all children, You can point them in the direction of those numbers, and indeed you can point them in the direction of this article from 2018, where schoolgirls asked, why is a 30-year-old man in my maths class? That man claimed to be 15. Do you remember, by any chance, when Yvette Cooper said this?
Fixing the chaos in the asylum system, ending asylum hotels, clearing the backlog and setting up a new returns unit to get in place of the gimmicks to actually get some grip again.
Labour are going to clear the backlog and end the use of migrant hotels. Well, we currently have a record number of people in that backlog, and believe it or not, the oldest case is 17 years old, which means that the chap tried to claim asylum under Tony Blair, lived through 14 years of the Tories, and then now hopes this Labour government will give him a crack. And Yvette Cooper has just admitted that she can't end the use of hotels because the backlog is so high, which means we could still be paying for hotels in 3 years' time, at a cost of around £4 million a day. A Labour source told The Times it's going to take a lot longer to clear than we anticipated. Yeah. So to summarise, HIV cases at a 15-year high, more fake child asylum seekers than ever before, loads of migrant hotels for at least another 3 years, and the backlog is bigger than ever. Labour seem to like other people's money, don't they? And we'll come on to that later. But I do wonder if Starmer and Cooper's smash the gangs promise was a cheque that they can't cash. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. I'm joined by the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, businessman and activist Adam Brooks, and the broadcaster and journalist Nina Mishkov. Mark, I'll start with you on this. I mean, the migrant crisis is both a public health emergency as well as a financial emergency, according to the figures there.
No, that's right. And it was intriguing seeing that clip. You don't have to like or be sympathetic to Nigel Farage to actually still want us to get the basic facts on the table. And I think it's terrible if people sort of say, oh, you can't say that, people might take offence. Facts cannot be racist. And we need the facts in order to make these sort of determinations. Look, let's be honest here. The system is totally broken from top to toe. The legal arrangements are crazy, and it's my view that we'll have to leave the European Convention of Human Rights in order to have a more streamlined system, because the list of appeals you can make are exhaustive. People have worked out ways to game the system. I mean, 17 years is an outlier, but it's just ludicrous there's a single case that has taken that long. And then we've actually got the problem of basic broad enforcement. I think by most judgments, I don't know exactly how you'd measure it, the Home Office is the most dysfunctional department in government, the most dysfunctional department in Whitehall, and that's quite a high bar to clear, because most of them are dysfunctional. That's got to be completely overhauled. Look, I'm not going to tritely blame the Labour government for this after what it is 100 days in office, but my worry is they don't have a coherent plan to even deal with it.
And that's part of the problem, because they told us they did. They told us we can clear the backlog. Yep. They told us we can end the use of migrant hotels. And actually, now here we are, less than 100 days in, the backlog is higher than ever. It turns out we've had a record number of fake child asylum seekers, and they've already said that they're going to continue using hotels for at least another 3 years, Adam.
Look, I've been doing a lot of soul-searching recently, wondering what the future of this country holds for my children. I'm scared. This country facilitates tens of thousands of unknown, unchecked men from different cultures being put into our communities. We're even putting them in our classrooms because these migrants are pretending to be children. Now, our social housing is getting filled up by foreign-born. Our own poorest will not be able to get social housing in just a few years. We're now seeing a surge in fatal diseases and once controlled diseases like HIV. We are putting ourselves in danger by letting these people carry on coming across on these boats. In France, they only grant around a quarter of those asylum seekers their applications. In this country, it's more like 3/4. So it's pretty damn...
60%.
It's pretty damn obvious that many of those that are coming to this country are simply economic migrants.
Well, Nina, how do you feel about that when you see some of the health figures there? And by the way, I should say as well, when it comes to those HIV figures, it's not just channel migrants that counts for. It's people generally to illegal migrants as well. Right?
Absolutely.
How do you feel when you see that, as the idea there that, you know, it was deemed to be... You couldn't say that out loud, but it is a fact.
It's a fact, and it's a tragic fact. And I do think it is a worry. And these, particularly if you look at what the incidence of HIV, in particular in sub-Saharan Africa, in particular South Africa, it's absolutely, you know, the HIV is rife throughout the population. I don't think we're getting migrants so much from South Africa as from East Africa, but East Africa is responsible in many of those cases. It is an absolutely tragic situation. And the thing is that I'm not sitting here and saying we should, you know, let anybody come in and let's all, you know, look after them. I'm saying that they have a legal, migrants, whether they are healthy or unhealthy, do have a legal right to come ask for refuge on in our shores. The incidence of problems that arise from migrants, Adam is, you know, completely conflating every.
No, the stats.
Hang on.
One second.
No, you haven't even heard what I'm saying.
Sweden and Denmark prove that migrants are disproportionately.
Adam, you hadn't even hear what I said.
Crimes and violent crimes in those countries.
Adam, you didn't even wait. You didn't even wait to hear what I was going to say. Thank you, Patrick. Otherwise, I'd say you're another member of the bloody Taliban here, silencing a woman. Absolutely. Absolutely.
The other week you called me a lunatic and Patrick, and now you're calling me the Taliban. OK, Nina.
Well, thank you for letting me speak now. When I'm allowed to speak, you're a man allowing me to speak. Thank you very much.
Did you not butt in when I was speaking?
All right, guys, let's keep it on topic.
I answered the points you made. Right. You didn't even let me make a point.
Please do.
OK, the point I'm making is that Adam seems to conflate every single problem that has been caused by 14 years of Tory misrule and blaming it on immigrants. Now, that is divisive and inflationary, and I will call it out when I hear it. What I was going to say...
So you don't like facts? You don't like the fact that migrants are disproportionately committing sex crimes and violent crimes across Europe? Fact.
That is not the point we are making.
That a fact?
That is not... I don't know that fact.
Well, that is a fact. That is a fact.
I don't know that. I'd like to see it in black and white. The problem is that we've had 14 years, we're talking about migrants, we had 14 years of...
What's the solution, Nina?
The solution is to get a Home Office that bloody well works, and we haven't had that. Now, hang on a minute. Look, hang on a minute.
Is this a monologue or a discussion?
This is a monologue at this point, because I've listened to monologues.
It's supposed to be a discussion. But here is the problem. We've got to take a hard-headed look at this. We can be compassionate about it, but we need to be realistic about it. The National Health Service, which seems to be permanently on its knees, can't realistically be a World Health Service. So we've actually got to make a hard-headed decision about whether you want drugs to treat HIV to be available to a large number of people who are not presently British citizens. You can say yes, but then you're going to have to find a very large amount of money from somewhere. But I think it's perfectly reasonable to segment all of these different issues, whether it's crime, whether it's the cost of health treatment, and you might argue you want to provide it, but it will have to be funded. And in each and every area, I think there are problems around immigration because the system was broken down. And rather than just saying, well, 14 years of Tory misrule and Labour's only been in for 3 months, I'm not making a partisan point. I want to actually get to what the public policy solution would be.
But we need a Home Office that works. If each case was processed within 6 months, we wouldn't have this problem.
But unfortunately, I've just saw a story just before I came on air, which I think we're probably going to talk about a bit later on. The civil service have just voted to go on all-out strike because they were about to be forced to do 2 days a week in the office.
They will need to be brought into line because, I mean, and this is an anecdotal story. Somebody we know, their brother-in-law is head of a team at the asylum processing. He works from home.
Right.
He works from home on the golf course. His wife taps the mice.
That's reassuring.
Absolutely. So we need to get people back in the office. We need to get people working. Between April and June, the number of cases solved by the process went down from 14,000 to 3,000, which is ridiculous. It's the Home Office.
The other point here is it cuts... And Labour are bang in trouble at the moment about you know, allegations with sleaze, about allegations with... And it is allegations of things like corruption or... You know, a bit grubby. It's a bit grubby, right? And we are very much coming on to that because there is quite a big bit about Lord Ali that is landing quite soon. But when you look at this now, it's also about lies and deceit, isn't it? Something else worth keeping an eye on. Lies and deceit when it comes to the Labour Party.
Look,
and if they've told us, we've got this plan, we can clear the backlog, we can clear the hotels, and we're all going to be paying £4 million a day for at least another 3 years, well, I'm sorry, they weren't being honest about that, were they?
No, they wasn't at all. And, you know, they made all these promises. They funnily enough, they didn't mention that they was going to go after pensioners before the election because that, you know, people wouldn't have voted for that. Tuition fees for students, that they was going to abolish them a few years ago. Now they're putting them up 13.5%. So how many more lies are there? And I do not trust this Labour government on immigration because, unfortunately, people like Nina and people on the left seem to think this rose-tinted vision that we've got scientists and doctors coming across on dinghies from France, when it clearly isn't the case.
It's not a rose-tinted vision. There are people who have brains. There are people who are capable of having a career that can contribute to our society. One of those young asylum seekers who was found out to said he was a kid and he turned out to be... where was he caught? He was caught in a school, aged 19, doing his GCSEs. Now, that's hardly out...
Surrounded by 15-year-old girls.
Yeah. Well, he's 90. He was 19, not... This is a particular one. No, come on.
It's obvious that's what the British education system's
for.
No,
but you're
surrounded by a load of girls.
No, he's not a man.
But we've also had
you're implying...
20-year-olds in classrooms with children, Nina.
I agree, that's wrong, but you're implying that they're all useless individuals who are only out to,
you can measure cohorts, Nina, and you can make overall judgments about the data about that cohort. You don't need to tar everybody with the same brush. But public policy requires you to look at data sets, work out where problems are, and then think through what the solution
The problem is the Home Office. Get it working. Get people processed.
I want a Home Office and a government that works for the working people and the people of this country.
Split up
not
Home Office.
For people that are born abroad.
OK, fine. Look, OK, so it's been quite a bombshell day when it comes to illegal and, arguably legal migration as well. You know, some damning health stats there about HIV. Also the idea that we've got record levels of fake child asylum seekers. It's not great, is it, at the moment in Britain? But anyway, it is time, ironically, for the Great British Giveaway. And your chance to win the equivalent of having an extra £3,000 in your bank account every single month for the next year. A whopping £36,000 in tax-free cash. Here's all the details how you can make that money yours.
This is good luck.
OK, so coming up shortly, I've got the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. Can I just tell you about a couple of things that are absolute corkers? All right, so we're going to be talking about the latest from Lord Ali. He's under investigation. There's some interesting stuff there when it comes to paying other people's expenses claims as well. The civil service have announced that they are going to go on an all-out strike because they don't want to work in the office for 2 days a week. And also, unions are protesting outside Dale Vince's office. All right, you know, the big green guy. It's got it all, this paper review. Anyway, do you remember this? Right, well, I've just won a tenner, because I called this at the time. Angela Rayner's Rave in Ibiza was a freebie, paid for by an American music management company. I'll bring you all the very latest soon, but first...
The Hezbollah in Iran have played it fairly rationally, always try to be, very cautious in how they respond.
So, as Iranian missiles rained down over Israel, the BBC invited a guest on to wax lyrical about Hezbollah and Iran's, quote, restraint. Well, I'll tell you why all was not as it seemed with that guest, and ask, is the BBC institutionally biased against Israel? Former BBC executive and presenter Roger Bolton joins me live next.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
It was revealed that former Prime Minister Boris Johnson had what they called a manly pep talk with Prince Harry in an attempt to persuade the Duke to stay in the UK.
Let's talk to former Royal Gardener Jack Stooks and Royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliams. Morning to you both. Richard, what do you think? Do we need to forgive and forget?
Well, firstly, I mean, they don't want to come back, and at the moment, absolutely not. I mean, you'd have a circus. Every single royal event that involved the Sussexes, you'd have the focus on them and so forth. It would, in reality, be completely impractical if you consider that in the past 4 years, they've conducted a guerrilla war against the royal family. They've done enormous damage to it.
OK, Jack, I know that over the many years you worked for Prince Charles, you got to know both of the boys very well. And you're a bit fed up with the negative way that certainly we now in the media in Britain talk about Harry.
What have they actually done that's been so awful that Britain can't let them come and go as they please? All they've done is be themselves. So Harry chose to marry Meghan. You know, everybody has an opinion, and completely everybody's entitled to that opinion, like them or loathe them. That's the opinion that people have. But they haven't been given a ban on not coming back to England. So if they want to come back to England, let them come back to England. If they don't want to come back to England, again, they don't need to. It is their lives, and that's what Harry was banging on about at the time. He just wanted to have his life.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. All of tomorrow's newspaper front pages are coming very, very soon, and there are some absolute corkers on there. I mean, a real story, so stay tuned for that. But first, as Iranian missiles rained down over Israel last night, the BBC did what it does best and found a so-called expert to brand Iran rational.
But we need, I mean, this is not for the Israelis to decide. I think the international community has to make sure that whatever Israel does is not upending the regional order as we know it. And the US has a responsibility. So we've been in this cause for 12 months now of constantly red lines being crossed, mostly by the Israelis. The Hezbollah and Iran have played it fairly rationally, trying to be very cautious in how they respond, trying to leave off-ramps where they could. The Netanyahu government has kind of lost the opportunity at every sort of junction to use an off-ramp that was given to them.
So that was the King's College London's academic, Dr. Andreas Krief, whose own website boasts that he spent 4 years in Qatar, where he was involved in negotiating a contract between the State of Qatar, the UK Ministry of Defence and King's College London. Qatar is, of course, a key financial backer of terror groups like Hamas. Now, it does come after 3 Jewish organisations backed a report that concluded that the BBC was institutionally hostile to Israel. I'm joined now by former BBC executive and presenter Roger Bolton. Roger, thank you very, very much. This is yet another case of the BBC managing to find a so-called impartial voice that turns out to be anything but impartial.
No, it's the BBC's responsibility to talk to a wide range of people, and it should be duly impartial, which means that it doesn't have to accept the words of people who support terrorism or whatever, but it does have a job to properly examine what they say. But imagine that it didn't talk to people like the person you mentioned. Imagine if it only talked to support of Israel. Well, what would it be doing?
But it's how they pass it off, though, Roger, isn't it? You get there, here is a noble, learned, independent academic. They don't tell you about his history with Qatar and all of that stuff. I mean, they do this all... Can I just ask? Can I just say to you, look, they do it all the time. So we've got here, the BBC failed to tell us all that a doctor was an activist. The BBC hides an A&E doctors' union activist background. They do this all the time. I'm looking at a page here in front of me.
Well, hold on. What you're alleging there is a systematic attempt by the BBC to mislead the public and not to reveal details of people's background. That's suggesting that the organisation itself is set out to deceive. It makes mistakes. It can't always check every single thing about everybody.
You can if they turn out to be a Labour councillor, Roger.
Well, hold on a second. So in the terms of the Middle East, it has to show a wide range of opinion, but its job is to report what people think and then to test as far as possible what they say. And by the way, this suggestion that the whole of the Jewish community, for example, in this country thinks the BBC is biased is not the case. 80%, the Institute for Jewish Policy Research in September discovered that 80% of British Jews disapprove of Netanyahu and most are pessimistic about Israel. So there are a whole raft of Jews in this country who don't agree with the Daily Telegraph.
That's fine, but I would counter that by saying the BBC breached its own guidelines 1,500 times, according to a report. A report that the BBC conveniently refused to accept. They do this every time.
Let me tell you that report. That report is called the Assassin Report. It's made by a man who is a British-Israeli businessman. It's been funded by Israeli business people. It employs a range of people using AI to analyse material.
AI is the crucial bit there, Roger, isn't it? That's designed. The AI is designed to take out the argument that you've just made. That essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, because this man has vested interest with Israel, that therefore there must be a problem, a human problem with this report. So that's why they used AI, isn't it?
No, because the way in which you use AI or the way in which you interpret the facts or evidence produced by AI is crucial. Let me give you an example. Big point in the Assassin Report is that the reference to genocide is used far more about Israel than anyone else. Well, that is because South Africa has alleged Israel is committing genocide and has taken that to the Court of Justice. So when you report
But look, Roger, I'm reading here. The BBC brought in a human rights lawyer called Jacqueline McKenzie onto the Today programme to chat about the first voluntary Rwanda removal scheme. Then the BBC seems to have forgotten to mention that she has a role advising the Labour Party as a member on their race equality task force. I'll go down the page. Another BBC failure to declare their commentators' activism. On Politics Live this time, they brought on a headmaster to chat about 12-hour school days. Surprise, surprise, he was full of criticism. Well, it turns out the slightest little dig of this guy's social media profile turns out he regularly attends Labour events. I do put it to you that it looks a lot like the BBC deliberately put Labour activists and left-wing activists and sometimes anti-Israel activists on the air and try to pass them off as independent commentators.
But you really see, look, all journalists make mistakes. BBC News will make mistakes. There may be individual instances where they should have probed more clearly with a background of people. But what you're alleging there is a systematic attempt by all of the BBC deliberately, either in relation to Israel or in relation to the Labour Party or whatever, to present a deliberately deceive the British public.
Whereas you just think they're incompetent. You just think they're incompetent.
Conspiracy. You're living in a fantasy land of conspiracy theories. It's absolutely right. You should scrutinise BBC output. But this absurd idea that there's some overall plot in the BBC to mislead the public.
They make a lot of mistakes, Roger. They make a lot of mistakes. Given the resources that we all pay for, I find it astonishing. You know, I mean,
that's different. A point. If you say they're not good and professional enough, fine. You make a point, maybe true or not. If you allege they're biased systematically, you have to provide evidence, not just one or two cases. What do you suggest? There are so many journalists in the BBC. There are Jewish journalists, there are Muslim journalists.
Fine. I just find it remarkable. I just find it remarkable. You know, again here, you know, they brought on a chap. They brought on a chap to talk about rail infrastructure, and it turns out he's literally a Labour Party city councillor, a one-time Labour prospective parliamentary candidate. And, you know, and this happens all the time. Look, Roger, I'm afraid I've got some breaking news. I'm sorry.
Let me have that left-handed word. You've made these points. If you've got the BBC should always explain the background to people, and if they haven't in that. You're right and they're wrong. But that doesn't mean There's a systematic system of
Okay,
bias.
look, I'm going to have to go, Roger, because I've got some breaking news. I do really appreciate you coming on, and I do really appreciate the nature of you putting out that side of the case, so thank you very much. Roger Bolton there, former BBC executive and presenter. Now, on to that breaking news. A massive blast was heard across Lebanon's Beirut just minutes ago. Reuters are reporting that this evening. I believe that we can actually have a look very shortly at that blast. So it does appear there's very concerning news now, which is that there was a massive blast across Beirut. This, I think, is the moment. Yes, it is. There we go. So for those of you watching on radio, that is a massive mushroom cloud there. That has now been confirmed as an Israeli strike hitting Beirut, and that is according to security sources. Is it possible to just see that video one more time? So this is the moment that there was a massive Israeli strike in Beirut. It's just been reported in the last few minutes. Let's just see if we can have another look at that. There you go, so that is central Beirut. So Reuters are reporting that an Israeli strike has hit central Beirut, and that there is a huge towering inferno as a result of that. We will bring you much more on that as we get it. Coming up, though, I'll bring you the very first look at tomorrow's newspaper front pages. And as well, it's something that's worth noting, I think, given some of the stuff that's doing the rounds about Labour at the moment. Do you remember when Angela Rayner had a big night out? Well, I'm very happy because I won a bet around the office. Lo and behold, that was yet another freebie. And it comes the same day that Keir Starmer's had to pay back £6,000 worth of gifts and hospitality, and he could be on the hook for £50,000 more. I'll bring you up to speed with the latest twists and turns in the Labour donor scandal next.
Hello, good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's going to be a cold night ahead with some frost and fog in places, but generally high pressure is building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather to come. Still low pressure dominating across the south, so cloudier here with some showers, but high pressure in the north is building across the country, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather. Now, as we head into this evening, still some cloud across the south, but it is generally breaking up as we head into the overnight period, so leaving plenty of clear spells. Largely dry, though, still the chance of a few showers just poking into the southeastern coasts. But otherwise, a dry night for many, plenty of clear spells, so it will be feeling cold with some fog in places too, particularly in northern areas. Might just be a little bit slow to clear by the time we reach tomorrow morning as well. So as I say, particularly across Scotland, it will be feeling cold, likely to see some grass frost, may even see a little bit of frost on your cars during the early hours of the morning, and there will be fog in places too, so do take care when travelling. This generally lifting and breaking through the course of the morning, but as I say, there may be some stubborn fog, which is slow to clear. Largely dry across the south, still those showers just feeding into the southeast coast. But as I say, high pressure building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather across the country. There is still the chance of the odd shower across the southeast, but you'll probably be unlucky if you do catch any. Largely dry, plenty of sunny spells and some lighter winds as well. So even though temperatures are generally round about average with highs of around 16, 17 in the southeast, it'll probably feel more pleasant in those lighter winds. As we head into Friday, still plenty of fine and settled weather around, but low pressure is trying to edge its way into the west. So cloudier here with some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. And there will still be plenty of fine, dry weather across the country as we head into the weekend, but we are expecting some more unsettled spells as well. So as always, stay tuned for all the details. Bye for now.
I'm Nana Akweer. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This Sunday, join me, Camilla Tominey, for an exclusive interview with one of the most controversial, influential and unique political figures of our time. Boris Johnson will be in studio discussing his new memoir, Unleashed, the gripping story of how he dealt with plotting politicians, problematic princes and a pandemic. From Boris bikes to Brexit and everything else in between. This Sunday at 9:30 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
OK, you've just seen a promo there for Camilla Tominey interviewing Boris Johnson, and you're really going to have to watch that on GB News, because I've just seen a tweet by Laura Koonsberg at the BBC. I'll read this to you. While prepping to interview Boris Johnson tomorrow, by mistake, I sent our briefing notes to him in a message meant for my team. That obviously means it's not right for the interview to go ahead. It's very frustrating, and there's no point pretending it's anything other than embarrassing and disappointing, as there are plenty of important questions to be asked. But red faces aside, honesty is the best policy. See you on Sunday. So watch Camilla Tominey on Sunday on GB News for the only place, I think, with Bojo. So, all right. Anyway, I've got some front pages for you, so should we work our way through those? The Daily Express. Security chiefs fear rising terror attacks in the UK. This is the threat of, well, frankly, Islamist sleeper cells here in Britain. We did cover that quite a lot yesterday. Let's go to the Times. 8 Israeli soldiers die in battle with Hezbollah. They've got a picture there of defiant Israelis standing on top of the remains of an Iranian missile. Let's go to the Metro. Now Iran must pay the price. Ex-Prime Minister urges strikes on nuclear plants to avenge missile strike. We just brought to you moments ago a huge explosion in central Beirut there as the Israelis strike back. The Eye carries the same story. Israel vows rapid revenge strike on Iran. United States will not support Netanyahu's attack on Iran's nuclear sites. I've got a feeling that they might just do it anyway. Let's go to The Guardian. US warns Israel, we won't support attacks on Iranian nuclear sites. OK, fine. The Daily Telegraph, UK forces not up to defending Israelis. RAF lacks the weapons to hit Iranian missiles and destroyers are ill-equipped, says Wallace. So there we are. Now, I'm going to whiz us over here to the front of the Daily Mail and use this as a launch pad for our big talking point. Starmer coughs up $6,000 to pay for his freebies. The Prime Minister forks out for Taylor Swift tickets and his wife's clothes, as donor Lord Ali is probed by a House of Lords watchdog. So, look, first, it emerged that the Labour peer at the centre of the freebie scandal, Lord Wahid Ali, is under investigation by a parliamentary watchdog now over a potential breach of the Code of Conduct. But it gets worse for Lord Ali, because in the past couple of hours, it's emerged that he bailed out a Labour baroness after she was found to have wrongly claimed £125,000 in the parliamentary expenses scandal. And then, just moments later, Sir Keir Starmer announced that he's paid back £6,000 worth of gifts and hospitality. The PM is covering the cost of 6 Taylor Swift tickets, 4 days at the races, and a clothing rental agreement with a high-end designer favoured by his wife, Lady Victoria Starmer. And to top it all off, we've obviously got Angela Rayner's Ibiza nightclub fiasco. And bingo, we all called it, didn't we? That was a freebie, paid for by an American talent management company. Mark, this is growing and growing and growing, and you just sense, don't you, that there might be more to come?
Yes, I mean, it's been like pulling teeth, Patrick, hasn't it? You know, each day passes and some other new bit comes out. Keir Starmer's started to repay some of it. Is he going to repay all of it? And the whole terrible problem for the Prime Minister and the Deputy Prime Minister is they could not have been clearer about this. They were going to be completely different, working for public service, not self-service at all, a breath of fresh air, a complete change from the sleazy Tories. Absolutely unbelievable. And that, put aside the rules for the moment, because oftentimes when politicians get into trouble, they say, well, I abided by the rules, I ticked the right box, or if I didn't, it's a clerical error. I just question the judgment. I mean, why would you take holidays and clothes from a rich donor? Very odd.
Agreed.
I'm a bit more sympathetic to sort of what you might call corporate hospitality. If somebody wants to meet you and takes you out for dinner or a night at the opera or a rugby match or a football match, I can see that could be part and parcel of your job. But holidays in Ibiza, what the hell has that got to do with being the Deputy Prime Minister?
I think it was just the DJ booth.
OK, it's still clearly just a straightforward leisure activity. Right? It's clearly nothing to do with the development of public policy.
How do we know that it was paid? Did she declare it?
Yeah, she declared
well,
it. Yeah.
There you are. That's completely transparent, surely.
Yeah,
but it's not whether it's transparent.
It's not hypocrisy. Why is it hypocrisy?
Why is the Deputy Prime Minister receiving gifts
Can I
for their own holidays?
But they've declared it. Fine, okay.
It has been declared.
There is something I want to zone in on, because this, to me, seems like a mistake on top of a mistake from Keir Starmer. To pay back $6,000 for Taylor Swift tickets and his wife's clothes. So we were told by Wes Streeting that it was just like giving to charity. Lord Wahid Ali didn't want anything from this money other than to help enrich a Labour government and therefore all of our lives. He was told it's fine. He told people, he told numerous journalists that most people at home would think fair dues taking hospitality. Well, why pay it back then? Why has he just paid back $6,000?
Look, so they need something that they can put out there, a good deed. And this is the PR that they've come up with. Let's pay back 6,000. But what about the other 101,000 that he's received in gifts and freebies since 2019? He's still the highest gifted MP in Parliament. This is just a PR exercise.
But it's a bad PR exercise, Adam, right? Because he's retreating 1 inch at a time, so he hasn't sort of drawn a line.
But he's paid back what's been given to him since he came into office. That's the difference.
But a few weeks ago,
before he was just the leader of the opposition.
But, a couple of weeks ago there was apparently no problem here. No. So he's resiling inch by inch.
These were all declared.
Yeah, that's all declared.
They were all declared.
Why has he changed his position on this?
Well, obviously it is it's a spin exercise, and he's paid back what he has been given.
It's a bit before. He wasn't at Doncaster. I don't think he was at Doncaster races. He might have been actually whilst he was PM. Yeah, all right, fair enough.
But the problem is it's a retreat inch by inch. They set up a line. You just quoted Wes Streeting. This is our position. It's no different to giving to charity. Nobody would think there was anything wrong with it. And then they have to resile from that a week later. And I wouldn't be surprised if they keep retreating inch by inch.
Literally, though, to me and people that, read the newspapers and watch media, it looks like Lord Ali is an ATM machine that they can just go and put in their card and withdraw money.
It's weird, though, isn't it?
It's really weird, and we need to know what is he getting out of this, or,
He is, as far as I can tell, I don't know any of these people personally. I'm merely an observer like you. It appears to me he is a man who has more money than he knows what to do with.
Yeah.
So that's not a problem for him. He also is somebody who was desperate to get a Labour government in. And that's his way of contributing. That's how he sees it.
Dancing with a DJ in Ibiza.
That was an American. That was an American company. I think it's. Look, I get you. I mean, there is that argument to it, and we all hope, don't we, that that's the case. That this is a man out of the generosity of his own heart who's doing that kind of stuff.
But seriously, Patrick, what could you give him? He's already in the House of Lords, so you can't ennoble.
You do that if you're that close.
You can't give him money.
The secret.
You can't. How else can you?
So he's had a pass to number 10.
Right. That's been withdrawn.
Hold on. He's been sat in important meetings that are to do with running the country.
Yeah.
Why?
It's also exactly. Sorry, we're going to have to go on because we're a bit late. But the point is this: if you become that close to power and you become that close to people, then you know all the secrets, and that gives you power.
Do politicians have advisors that have not been elected?
We're going to look. Sorry, I'm getting screamed at here.
Okay.
Rightly so. Coming up, all of the very rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and also the civil service. Yes, lucky for us, they're going to go out and strike. Why? Because they don't want to work from the office for 2 days a week. Shocker. Stay tuned.
Britain's Newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
So I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm going to see your show, Behind the Shoulder Pads, one night only at the Adelphi Theatre, October the 22nd. You're talking about your extraordinary life. Stage, screen, published author, 19 books, TV, most important.
Yeah.
Is there anyone who's managed to straddle, 7, 8 decades in showbiz and still be at the top?
Yes, I was thinking about that the other day because somebody said, you know, with The Last of Good. There is Shirley MacLaine.
Sure.
She started the same time as me.
Right.
Sophia Loren.
Yeah.
She started around the same time.
She's not working much, though.
It's true, she's not, but she's still out there being, you know, a major icon. And of course, people like Dick Van Dyke, who's just almost 100.
Yeah, he's incredible,
you know,
isn't he?
I'm a mere babe next to him.
You are. But and I was thinking about, you've written some extraordinary, wicked, waspish diaries, which of course you can because you've worked with so many people. Look at the names: Frank Sinatra, Lana Turner, Elizabeth Taylor, Dean Martin, Gregory Peck,
Richard Burton,
Paul Newman. The list goes on and on. And
my favourite.
Was he your favourite?
Yes.
Why?
Because I saw him in a movie when I was a little girl called For Me and My Gal with Judy Garland, and I just fell in love with him. It's such a cute movie. Well, they don't make movies like that anymore. And then I was lucky enough when I first went to Hollywood at age 20 to meet him and literally hang out with him and his friends. And then I put him in a movie with me that I produced. He played my husband in a movie called Sins. And he was wonderful. He was really wonderful.
The People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Look, I've got a couple more front pages for you, so we'll do those first. I've got The Sun here, Kate's hug of love. This is the princess meeting a cancer-stricken teen. And it's a lovely, tender picture. Let's go to the Daily Mirror. Touching royal moment, they also go for Kate's hug for cancer teen. Princess shares an emotional embrace with a fellow sufferer, Liz. I'll finish this off with The Independent. Iran will pay. Netanyahu vows revenge for attacks as significant response expected in days. We may have seen the start of that with a whopping great big explosion in downtown Beirut minutes ago. But here's something for you. Carol Vorderman may be regretting her endless lauding of the Labour Party after she's been forced to sell her £450,000 Welsh seaside forever home due to increases in second home council tax. Despite professing her love for the party and the Labour-run council less than 3 years ago, increases in annual bills on the property from £1,700 to £5,000 have forced her to throw in the towel on that forever home. So there we go. It's a shame, isn't it? And you hate to see it. Gosh, if that isn't the consequences of your own actions. Right, it's time to reveal today's greatest Britain and Union jackass.
Greatest Britain for me, honorary, Lev Kreitman, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's a flip-flop wearing survivor of the October 7th attacks by Hamas. You might have thought he'd still have PTSD. None of it at all. On Tuesday night, as a reservist, he leapt to the aid of the IDF, shot at 2 of the gunmen who were carrying out a terrorist attack, and from what we can work out, managed to kill one of them. What an absolute Chad. Total legend.
Well, in Lev. All right. OK, Adam.
Mine is Robert Jenrick MP, who is running for the leadership of the Conservatives. Have we finally got a Conservative leader that could fight back against immigration? He's saying all the right things, the rhetoric is good, and he's putting a few home truths out there.
Yeah, OK, fair enough. Go on then, Nina.
Prince Harry, for persevering with his charity work, like Well Child, with dedication, charm and warmth, despite the continuing and unfair prejudice and criticism.
Fair enough. All right. OK. Tough one, this. I think considering that the Tory leadership campaign is still rumbling on, I'll go for Lev on this one, who is the Israeli soldier who managed to slot those 2 terrorists last night. So fair play, Lev. Who's your union jackass, please?
That's going to go to the Trades Union Congress, Patrick. A ridiculous tweet from them. Viewers can go and check out their Twitter feed, their X feed. Oh, yeah. Jonathan Gullis, who lost his seat as a Conservative MP, a good man, Jonathan, I know him a little, was reflecting that he was finding it very difficult to get a job. The TUC decided to retweet this, saying the trade union movement will always stand up for workers facing unfair discrimination. This is not one of those times. So the TUC is not now about workers' rights, it's about the rights of people who ideologically align with the left.
Yeah. Yeah, because conceivably he is significantly better qualified than most teachers.
A shameful tweet by the TUC.
Mine is Ed Miliband for his suicidal energy madness that is going to plunge us into darkness and probably make us all poor and all freeze to death.
Well, don't worry, we've got those wind tunnels or whatever they're called. He's got Nina, who's your Union Jackass?
Robert Jenrick for many things.
I see why you pulled a face. Right, go on.
But mostly for saddling one of his 3 daughters with the middle name of Thatcher.
Genius. Genius.
What kind of a father brands his baby with his political ideology?
Brilliant.
Because that's exactly what it's doing.
Oh, it's interesting they didn't go for Margaret.
Margaret's a common name.
Thatcher, straight down the line, Thatcher. Yeah. Anyway, OK, so today's winner of the Union Jackass is the TUC, actually. No, Ed Miliband.
Last minute change.
Sorry, Mark, I flirted with you there and I just snatched it away at the end. No, it's going to be Ed Miliband. If you're wondering why, if you're watching this on Catch Up with me, please rewind to the top of the 9 o'clock because we got stuck right into this. Ed Miliband has basically admitted that his net zero push is going to make us all shivering during blackouts this winter, which is absolutely bonkers. Well, look, I have thoroughly enjoyed tonight's show. Thank you very much, everybody. This is fast becoming my favourite night of the week. Don't tell the others, but it is. I love this panel, even if you don't like each other very much. Thank you. Headliners are up next, and there's a heck of a lot for them to go at as well in all of the papers. They're going to be having a much more detailed look. And thank you very much, everybody, who's been getting in touch with me, even by post here at GB News, to help contribute to our Friends of the Elderly fundraiser. JustGiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors. Much more on that tomorrow. See you then.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening and welcome to your GB News weather update brought to you by the Met Office. Well, it's going to be a cold night ahead with some frost and fog in places, but generally high pressure is building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather to come. Still low pressure dominating across the south, so cloudier here with some showers, but high pressure in the north is building across the country, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather. Now, as we head into this evening, still some cloud across the south, but it is generally breaking up as we head into the overnight period, so leaving plenty of clear spells. Largely dry, though, still the chance of a few showers just poking into the southeastern coasts. But otherwise, a dry night for many, plenty of clear spells, so it will be feeling cold with some fog in places too, particularly in northern areas. Might just be a little bit slow to clear by the time we reach tomorrow morning as well. So as I say, particularly across Scotland, it will be feeling cold, likely to see some grass frost, may even see a little bit of frost on your cars during the early hours of the morning, and there will be fog in places too, so do take care when travelling. This generally lifting and breaking through the course of the morning, but as I say, there may be some stubborn fog, which is slow to clear. Largely dry across the south, still those showers just feeding into the southeast coast. But as I say, high pressure building, bringing plenty of fine and settled weather across the country. There is still the chance of the odd shower across the southeast, but you'll probably be unlucky if you do catch any. Largely dry, plenty of sunny spells and some lighter winds as well. So even though temperatures are generally round about average with highs of around 16, 17 in the southeast, it'll probably feel more pleasant in those lighter winds. As we head into Friday, still plenty of fine and settled weather around, but low pressure is trying to edge its way into the west. So cloudier here with some outbreaks of rain across Northern Ireland and western parts of Scotland. And there will still be plenty of fine, dry weather across the country as we head into the weekend, but we are expecting some more unsettled spells as well. So as always, stay tuned for all the details. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
There's still... This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Earlier this week, Olympic swimmer Adam Peaty finally proposed to his girlfriend, because I've been waiting for this, the daughter of Gordon Ramsay, with a gorgeous yellow diamond ring.
Yeah, so the demand for coloured diamonds in the last 10 years has soared by, guess how much, 77% between 2010 and 2019. Joining us now to tell us more about some of the hottest trends in the diamond world is dealer to the stars, Neil Dutson. Good morning, Neil. Morning, Ben. And I've got one of your exemplary examples. Look at this bad boy.
So
What's this one?
That's a very rare Muso Colombian emerald. And it's alpine green translucent, so it's a really stunning
See if
colour.
we get a close-up.
So, yeah, so pretty impressive.
Can I be very crude and ask how much this is worth?
So the value is £200,000.
How much, sorry?
£200,000. Now, The reason is its rarity. It's minor oiling. It's very, very, very pretty. The 2 diamonds on the side are D-colour flawless diamonds, just to accentuate the setting.
Neil, how did you get into diamonds?
I studied diamonds in Antwerp. So Antwerp used to be the diamond capital of the world, really. Yeah. 85% of the world's diamonds go through Antwerp, or used to. And now Dubai has taken over. And yeah, I just went to a school there. I learnt about diamonds, and I just didn't want to be seen off in the future.
Neil, I'm very concerned I'm going to drop 200 grand's worth of diamonds into my cup of tea, so can I give it back to you?
Absolutely.
But I can hold one if you like.
Oh, well, I've got
Neil.
a lovely one here.
Thank you.
So this is a fancy vivid yellow. It's 8 carats.
This is my dream ring, just so you know, for this hand. This would be
Is it big
amazing.
enough?
So what would I call this? A yellow?
So that's a natural fancy vivid yellow diamond. Value £300,000. So,
it fits
depends
like
where
a
you're
glove.
buying it from.
If
right?
it's like a glove, Neil,
Oh.
maybe it's a sign. It's meant to be
It's
mine.
definitely a sign, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. The top stories from the GB Newsroom at 11 o'clock. And some breaking news for you. An enormous blast has been heard across Beirut in Lebanon. A security source has told the Reuters news agency that the blast was caused by an Israeli strike hitting central Beirut within the city's limits, not far from downtown. It is unknown at this stage if anybody is injured. Israel is carrying out an offensive against the Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah in Lebanon, which partly prompted Iran to launch around 180 ballistic missiles at Israel last night. More news on that as we get it. The Prime Minister confirms there will be no return to freedom of movement in any reset of relations between the United Kingdom and the European Union. Sir Keir Starmer has been speaking at a press conference in Brussels where he met the European Union chiefs with a promise to put the Brexit years behind us and form a closer relationship with the bloc.
Now, of course, there will be issues which are difficult to resolve and on areas on which we will stand firm. There will be no return to freedom of movement, no return to the customs union, no return to the single market. But we will find constructive ways to work together and deliver for the British people.
Well, it's emerged Sir Keir Starmer's paid more than £6,000 worth of gifts and hospitality received since becoming Prime Minister. Downing Street's confirmed he's covered the cost of 6 Taylor Swift tickets, 4 to the races and a clothing rental agreement with a high-end designer favoured by his wife, Lady Starmer. It comes after Sir Keir and other Cabinet members who vowed to clean up British politics faced weeks of criticism for accepting tens of thousands of pounds worth of freebies from wealthy donors. A doctor charged over the death of Friends star Matthew Perry has pleaded guilty to a charge of illegally distributing the drug ketamine. Dr. Mark Chavez could face up to 10 years in prison when he is sentenced. He's today entered his plea during an appearance in a court in Los Angeles. He's one of 5 people charged in connection with Perry's death, 2 of which are scheduled to go on trial in March. Perry died at the age of 54 last October. And finally, the King's been showing off his dance moves tonight ahead of his trip to Samoa for the Commonwealth Heads of Governments meeting later this month. Well, it was a guest at His Majesty's Commonwealth reception who successfully persuaded him to join in a Samoan dance lesson. The King and Queen were hosting around 300 guests at St James's Palace in London, including the singer Grace Jones, the Strictly judged Motsi Mabuse and the rugby player Theo McFarland. And I suspect I'll be reporting on a lot more of His Majesty's moves in a few weeks' time. That's it from me for now. Now it's time for headliners.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.